Hi, my name is Keri Barnum. I'm the Executive Director of New Shelves Books, and this is Free Advice Friday, the hour every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, where we get together with publishers and authors and writers to brainstorm and talk about writing and marketing your books and publishing. And so if you've got any questions, we do them live. You can also email them in ahead of time at questions@freeadvicefridays.com. And today we've already got some questions coming in, and we also have some emails that we've got to answer. So I am excited to get started. Let's see. All right. What are the best promo sites for nonfiction? Most sites seem to cater to fiction. Sonia, you're not wrong. A lot of the big book blog reader sites go really heavily around fiction. And my personal opinion why is that fiction is something that everyone kind of reads, right? I mean, not everyone, but most people. Whereas nonfiction tends to be for a specific need for a more niche audience. So my recommendation is that if you're having a really hard time finding your nonfiction audience, go do some research on blogs or places that market your topic, not necessarily books. So if you are in, let's say, healthy lifestyles or eating, then go look at magazines, at websites and blogs that talk about healthy eating, healthy habits, that sort of thing, rather than just focusing on books. Now, with that said, a lot of the book promo sites, the Fussy Librarian, BookBub, all of those, they do promote nonfiction titles. It's just that their lists are much smaller there because, again, it's a more niche audience, especially when you get down into the nitty-gritty of it. And I feel like when people are looking for nonfiction books, they are a little bit more careful. They aren't just saying, just tell me any nonfiction book that you like or any self-help book that you like. People are usually looking for something specific. I really need to know about time management. And then they go and they specifically look for a time management book. So again, go to your topic, go to the people that are talking about what your book is about, rather than just relying so heavily on book blogs and book marketing. I hope that helps. We've seen some success there. All right. Can you speak to the pros and cons of creating series for a nonfiction book? I understand the benefits for fiction authors who have characters, but I write nonfiction post office books. Okay. And I recently received an email inquiring about my PCIP if my books are part of a series. So here's the thing, and David is saying that he wanted his books to be a standalone, but if there's value in a series, writers and authors, we pivot. That's what happens, is that we, in some ways, play to the market, of course, while staying true to ourselves. And David, I think that nonfiction, when you're writing in a series, it can be pretty loose. If your topic is always surrounding around post office books, you could easily turn that into a series because it's all on the same topic. And it doesn't have to be, exactly about the same thing, but maybe it's Post Offices in America series or something around that. Just like, let's take Chicken Soup, for example. Chicken Soup had tons and tons and tons of books. It was a huge series, but it had Chicken Soup for the pet lover, Chicken Soup for the teenager, Chicken Soup for the mom. They had totally different topics and different stories, but they tied it all together with a name and a format, basically. And you can do that as well. I think in some ways, with certain nonfiction books, it's easier to create a series because you just need a tie-in. You don't have to carry a story throughout. So if you have a series, I think it's great because what happens is you start to build your series name. As you market your series, as you're getting into libraries, and as you are earning trust and building relationships with librarians and bookstores and even readers, what happens is they come to recognize that name and that series so that when you have more books coming out, they're more likely to buy because there's already a trust and a relationship built there. So I think that it could be a really awesome thing if you can work it in with your market together. All right, let's see. All right. Don't know if I already posted this question in the email I sent, but have you ever heard of a publishing house called IAPC, Independent Authors Publishing Collective? They're a printer of children's books. So, Pat, I had not heard of them before your email. I did look them up, and I always say do your research. Very careful to give my opinions because I haven't used that service. I think you should always go do your research, look for people who've actually used their services, check them out on the Better Business Bureau. If they have Google reviews, check there, browse their site and see what they've got going on. I think it's really important that we do our due diligence to make sure that that you're getting what you want. And that's what I would do. I would also be checking out sites to see if they have recommendations from anywhere like IBPA, Ally, the Independence Alliance of Authors, those types of places. That's where I go. Go and do a search and see what comes up. All right. I love it. Hi, Kate. Kate is saying she's here by recommendation of Paula Munet, who we love. Paula's an agent at Talcott Notch. So thank you, Paula, and hi, Kate. It's great to have you here. Don't forget, you guys, if you have questions, feel free to just put them right in the Q&A box, and we will answer them today live. All right, I'm going to hop over to an email question because we had a couple of those come in over the last couple of days. And this one is from April. And April launched a nonfiction book earlier in the year, last year. And now she is asking about how she gets ready to launch her audiobook. So if you've got a book out and you've waited a little bit and you've got an audiobook, how do you set that launch up? And the answer really is you treat it just like a brand new book launch. And the great thing is that as you're doing this, it can breathe life into your book. You can market it all over again. You can go after reviews. You can talk about it as a new launch, which, you know, it's probably faded off if your book came out about a year ago. Also, I do know NetGalley is now working with audiobooks for audiobook reviews. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that if you're a member of IBPA, you can use NetGalley services at a discount through them. So that's a really interesting option. And that's what I'd be doing. I'd be talking it up. I'd be working to make sure that my book was in overdrive, the audiobook was in overdrive, so I could reach out to libraries. Because remember, when we want to market to libraries, we tell them about our book, but then when we go back to them, we don't ever want to say, did you get my email? Hey, I emailed you about my book and I want you to carry it and I never heard back from you. So what's going on? That's not how we want to approach or treat librarians. We want to go with them and say, I told you about my book last year when it launched in paperback, and I'm so excited to say that it was so popular that we decided to do an audiobook version, which is now available through Overdrive. I hope that you'll take a look. Here's all the information, and if you have any questions about the book, let me know. Do you see how you go from kind of harping and probably not being BFFs with the librarian to kind of just offering information? It will be much better received. It's a good way to kind of remind them, but in a positive light, just a friendly touch base. And so I would be doing that all over the place. Anyone who carried your book in a library, I would definitely do. Bookstores are a little bit different because a bookstore doesn't really sell audiobooks because it's all done online mostly. But you can certainly go online. You can go onto your social media, to your blog, and say, for all of you who aren't really paperback people and you ask me for an audiobook, I'm so happy to say it's available now. And then you start talking about it that way. So again, you're not saying, well, you didn't buy my book the first time, but you're just talking it up and talking positively. So that's what I would do for that launch. And of course, make it a big deal when the book comes out, do a big launch, do some graphics online and all that sort of thing. All right, and Miss Molly is asking about optimizing your Amazon page and how you upload your ebook description with HTML. So if any of you have a book up, or even if you've been looking at books, you know that if you don't do any HTML on KDP for your book listing, it's just a big chunk of text. It's just like a blob of text. And it's not very enticing. It's not easy to look at. It's not easy to read. So we really recommend that you optimize your Amazon listing with some simple HTML, some bolded headers that pop out, making sure that you have paragraphs and white space. And the easiest and best way to do that is just with HTML formatting. And the place you put that is right where you put your book description. So if you're on Amazon, when you have the button, there's the three little ellipses, the three little dots to the right of your book. And if you click on that, it will say edit book details, I think. It might be edit content. But if you click on there, it'll take you to the pages where you can edit everything. And there is a spot for book descriptions. You just put your HTML right in there. You can look up simple HTML, Amazon HTML. It's not too hard. But then you take your description, you put it in there, but then you have to save. You have to save all the way through, and you have to get to the publish button and click it, or save button, whichever one shows up. So it treats it almost like a brand new revision, and then it will say it's republishing your book. Do not worry. If you ever make changes in Amazon, I get this question all the time. Will it take my book off Amazon? Like if I change my files, if I'm updating my keywords or my HTML, is it going to just take my book offline? And the answer is no, absolutely not. Your book stays up as is while they review the changes, the files and whatnot. And then as it's approved, it just switches right over. Now keep in mind that as you update things, if you're changing your interior file, your format, anything, it can take 24 to 72 hours to get approved. But make sure you go all the way through the cycle of save till you get to the end publish button. And then once you go back to the main KDP bookshelf, it should say changes in review. Hope that helps, Molly. If you got more questions, just let me know. All right, I see a question over here from Patrick, and he's asking about a cover letter to libraries, and it begins stating the publishing house and that you publish your book and you're self-published. You set up an LLC that uses a variation of my name. In the training videos, Amy said, don't use your name. In retrospect, I probably should have used a different name for my LLC. My question is, should I just name my LLC as publisher or state that I'm self-published or state both? So here's the thing, for anyone who's here heard Amy or I talk about naming your publishing house, number one, you need to name your publishing house. Please do not go in with Keri Barnum Books or nothing at all and let Amazon or KDP take credit. Name your publishing house. But here's an important distinction. You can have a business name in your LLC, DBA, your business name, whatever you're using, and name your publishing house something totally different. That's called an imprint. So your tax ID, your registration would be under your official name, whether it's your own or you're using a company or LLC. And then you create an imprint. And the imprint generally should be something totally separate that doesn't have your name, that's kind of outside of the spectrum. So people don't look at it and go, oh yeah, that's Keri's book company. She just published herself. But if you did publish already under your own name or something close to it, that's okay. I think we can always work around things. It's not ideal, but what I would do, call it out right in the beginning. You can say, I was so passionate about this project that I wanted to shepherd it all the way through. So I created a publishing company, worked with a lot of professionals, and I put this book out. I think the important thing is that your book has to look professional. So if your cover is professional, if you outright just say, I worked with professionals to make sure that this book was everything it could be, and I really think that you'll see it stands up to the market, that's what's important. I think that when there's something uncomfortable in the room, when there's something you think maybe libraries aren't gonna like, or if they ask you about it, put it right there out on the table. Face it head on and turn it into how it was a positive. It's not that I had to have my book self-published. It's that I cared so much that I want to walk along with every step. I got a lot of help from professionals so that I could walk this book through every stage. And I think that the product stands up to the market and everything you have. So hopefully that helps. And Patrick, I've seen your book. It is awesome, and I think it stands up to the market. I was looking at it last night, actually. You've already got 73 reviews. I know you've hit some Amazon bestseller lists, so I would be really proud of your book for sure. Absolutely. I think you've got everything going for you as you present that to the market. But if you've got more questions, let me know. All right, I published my book through Ingram Spark. Do I need to also publish my book and create an account separately with Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc.? Well, the question I would have there is it a hardcover or is it paperback and ebook? So if you only have a hardcover, Ingram Spark is pretty much all you need. They will get your book into barnesandnoble.com. They will get you into Ingram Wholesale, where any of those stores like walmart.com or even bookstores and libraries can order from. However, if you have a book that is paperback and ebook, I strongly, strongly recommend that you set up a KDP account. You put the ebook and the paperback there, and so you'll get higher royalties directly through Amazon. And then you also set your paperback up on Ingram Spark for wholesale. So you kind of use both, but if you've got a hardcover, that pretty much lives at Ingram Spark. Amazon doesn't have hardcover printing, so you don't have to go there. Ebook, I personally don't use Ingram Spark for distribution. I prefer draft to digital. So take that as you would. All right. Randy, if you've got a softball question, I hope that's a euphemism because I'm not going to be much help if it's actual ball. But throw it at me. That was punny. All right. I was made to be like someone who just gives out dad jokes all day long. All right. What do you recommend for someone whose Amazon ads aren't converting? And I love this. We talked about this. I know we were going back and forth on email last night. So if you've got ads set up on Amazon, you're running them, you're getting impressions, you're getting clicks, but you're not getting sales, it's time to have a serious chat. I would be looking at a couple things. And if you're getting people over to your Amazon page, but you're losing them before they make the sale, before they hit the buy button, then you need to look at what's happening on your Amazon page. How's your price? Do you have your book available in ebook and print formats? How's your description? I mean, honestly, could you change it up? Could you try something else and see if it's more captivating? Is your whole Amazon page optimized? Does it have some HTML and white space so it's easy to read? Do you have a call to action? Do you have an exciting headline? And that's what I would start playing with. I wouldn't change everything all at once because then it's hard to know what may or may not affect it. But if you're going to drop the price, great, drop the price, do an ad set and see if the conversion for ads goes through a little bit better. If the price doesn't change anything, look at your description. Are you being mainstream enough? Does your book clearly state what the book was about? I find that sometimes people get so wrapped up in their book or their story that they're comfortable with it. And so they are describing their book as someone who already knows what's inside. But can someone who maybe doesn't even see the cover, if someone is just reading your book description, do they have a really good idea of what it's about? And do they have an idea of what they're buying? Because if not, that's a problem. So I would really go to some people who maybe have never heard of your book before, no description. Go to some third parties and see what they think. And if just by the description alone, no cover, they have an idea of what your book is about. That's what I would try. I would try and look at those things and then try a couple of ads, and that would be my next steps. All right. Kate says, I'm working on a memoir. I need to start developing a platform so when I'm ready to go, I can have at least a modest platform. I have no idea where to begin, even with content. Well, Kate, you're not alone. I hear this from authors all the time. I actually was just talking to someone yesterday who said, I'm a writer. That's all I want to do. I don't want to do Facebook or Twitter. And I very nicely and kindly said, that's too bad. No, but really, we laughed about it because whether or not you're comfortable on social media or online, you have to build your platform there if you really want to stand out in the market. Now more than ever, literary agents, publishers, they're looking for authors who can stand out online, who can market themselves, because they will take the book further than than an author who doesn't do much. Same thing, if you're self-publishing, then you have just become not only the writer, the publisher, but also the marketing team in many cases. So you have to start building that platform. Sounds scary, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to go out and get every social media account out there in one day and try to learn them all. In fact, I really say don't do that. I would do your research, find out where your audience is hanging out, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, and pick one, just one of them to start. Start building that up. Get comfortable with the platform, start connecting with people who are reading books like yours, writing books like yours, and start to connect with them. If you're on Twitter, you can do that with hashtags. If you are on Facebook, you need an author page. Obviously, you don't need to brand your title or anything, but brand yourself as an author and start connecting with people. Start writing things about writing. If you're doing research, start posting your interesting research. If you're really into memes and dad jokes, post those out. Find your people, and that's what I think it's all about. Find a common interest so that you can be friends. And start with the one. Once you get the one and you find your place online and you feel like you're growing, if you're ready to add a second, and it makes sense because your people hang out somewhere else, go there. Add it in slowly. But the most important part is just to start. It's not as scary as it seems. And if you have a problem with maybe staying on course, because I hear this a lot too, you told me to start Facebook, so I started Facebook, but now I'm spending 2 hours a day on it, and I'm just scrolling, and I'm doing anything. So if that's the case, I always tell people, schedule your social media. Sit down for 20 minutes and schedule out posts to go out on your social media a couple times a week or every day, however you're doing it. Either Facebook has a scheduling post for pages, there's Hootsuite, there is Recur posts. There are so many different options for scheduling so that even when you're not working on your platform is working for you. It doesn't have to be hard, it just has to be consistent. So get started. Can't wait to see what you come up with. Oh, Randy, I'm sorry that your internet connection went out when I answered your question, but we'll get the replay up. So for anyone who ever misses, comes in late, we always put the replay of our Free Advice Fridays up on YouTube. So if you are not subscribed, go to our YouTube channel. It's New Shelves Books, and just subscribe. That way you get all of our replays. And we've got some special content coming up that won't be live. I've got a couple interviews of people who just couldn't make it live. So we are going to be surprising you with some of those on YouTube, and you won't see them unless you're subscribed. So go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. And if you don't know where the YouTube channel is, just go to freeadvicefridays.com and there's a YouTube button. Couldn't really be more easier. And then you just hit the subscribe button so that you see us and you get that surprise content. All right, and I'm just gonna remind you guys, if you could put your questions in the Q&A, it's so helpful to me because that way I make sure I don't miss them, because I have a scrolling chat bar. Every time someone is talking or typing in, it scrolls up my chat bar, and I don't want to miss your question. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box so I don't miss it. And if I have missed it, I'm not ignoring you. It's just scrolling. All right. And Michael's saying, I didn't catch the name of the ebook company that you prefer to Ingram Spark. Can you repeat? Yes, the company that I like to distribute ebooks from is Draft, D-R-A-F-T, the number 2, digital, digital.com. I highly recommend them. It's an easy platform to use, and they will get your book out to Barnes & Noble, Apple, Kobo, Bibliotheca, Overdrive. They really do the gamut outside of Amazon, and I found them very easy to work with. I believe their royalty system is they take 15%, which is really reasonable, especially for how easy they are to use and how easy their system is. All right, Jean, I finally started to market my nonfiction self-published book. My nephew, who works in social media and manages the website for a large company, told me it would be far better for me to market on all social media platforms and Amazon author page with one click to get my book instead of creating an expensive website. Well, yes and no. Here's the thing. I don't think you need an expensive website, but I think you should have a website because the #1 search engine is still Google. And if you have a website, it's easier to be found on Google. It doesn't have to be a crazy website. You can do it yourself. You can get it cheaply done, but I would grab a URL that is your name or as close to your name as you can get, and then brand it out and make sure that it is there and all of your social media links are there so that if someone does find you on a website, they can find you everywhere else as well. Also keep in mind, a website doesn't have to be, it's not something you have to update every 3 weeks or every week. You don't have to blog if you have nothing to blog about. Blogging can be great for people who have a lot of things to say that are willing to commit to the time. I always say if you're going to blog, you need to do it consistently. It can be once a week, every 2 weeks, once a month, whatever it is, you just need to do it consistently. But if blogging's not your thing, admit that it's not your thing and just avoid it. But I do think that a website is a great home online that I highly recommend. Also, the internet's up and out there and it's not really going anywhere as far as I know. So when you have a URL and you've got a website, you've got a place on the internet that you can go to. Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest. I have seen all of these places where people were branding themselves and building their accounts up there, and then something happened. Either they were hacked or they were hacked and then their entire page was deleted. Horror stories. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do those things, but I am saying you should have something that's more permanent that you own. What happens if Facebook goes away in 2 years? What happens if Twitter kind of dies out and then now there's this new thing called Woof or something like that? It's so important that you have your home online. And for me, that's a website. All right. All right, this is a good question. Vicki, what should be in or on your Amazon author page? So if you're trying to brand and if you are trying to optimize your Amazon author page, you need to go to Author Central and make sure that you have Author Central an account. You have to have a book published in order to create an Author Central account because you have to claim your book and that goes on your page. As far as what should go on there, if there's a field there, you should try to fill it out. If it's editorial reviews, try to fill it out. If they give you a spot for your bio, which they do, fill it out. A photo, you should have a photo of yourself. It should be a clear face picture of you. No selfies, no like cool artistic shots where we can't really see your face. And ladies, none of this like, I'm trying to be cool. It doesn't look cute and it's hard to identify you as you. So clear face shot, professional headshots, something that you would be proud to put on a resume because your Author Central page is part of your resume. So I think that's important. Fill it all out. You can link your blog to your Author Central page. You can put up videos and pictures of you holding the book. You can do all sorts of things. So I say if there is a field, consider filling it out. If you have nothing to put there, well, then don't make something up. But I do recommend that you go through and it's free content. It's free space for you. It's free keywords for you. Put information in there if you have it. So this is really interesting. Chuck is saying he had really good results selling audiobooks on his other website as a direct download or shipped via flash drive. So that's an option too, that if you have an audiobook, you can list it right on your website and sell it that way, which is really smart because then you're getting more money that way. So thanks for that tip, Chuck. I honestly haven't thought of that. I've thought of selling your print books on your own website, but not the audiobook. All right. So Chuck is saying, not a question, but just a comment on social media. Is focused on Facebook a couple of years ago and have been very satisfied. The Facebook page that they have has over 500,000 readers per year to the author website. So because they are having Facebook, and I'm assuming it's optimized in the About section, has the website, it's helping filter people over to the website. Facebook page grew organically to 15,000 likes and started 2 groups that are very engaged. I love that, Chuck, because that tells me, number one, you started, you were consistent, and that you interacted. Because this is another question I get from authors all the time. Can't I just have someone else do it for me? Like, can't I just have someone else put up my social media? Yes, you can. You can have an assistant or a company help you create content for your page. You can even have them schedule your post. But it's really important, you guys, that you as the author or the writer are connecting with your audience. No one has your voice like you do. So it's important that you are giving input on what's being posted, that you know what's being posted and you know how to engage. You should know, and you should be getting on your social media platforms 5 or 10 minutes every single day. And you should be getting on there and responding to comments, answering any messages that come in on your Facebook page. You should be getting on there and being part of your group. You cannot expect other people to grow and be part of your group if you're not willing to do it as well. Your voice is important. If you are branding yourself essentially as an author, your voice and you need to be a part of that system. So hop in there if you need assistance and help. Everyone needs a little help sometimes. Maybe you're not very good with computers or you're not good with graphics. Hire someone to post and schedule for you with a lot of input from you, but then learn the basics of how to go in and check things and comment and interact, because that is priceless and only you can do that. All right. And I love this. Engagement creates loyal repeat buyers of your book. And that's from Chuck Bartok. I'm going to give you credit, Chuck. Engagement creates loyal repeat buyers of your books. And I agree. We saw that with Barb Pinsky a couple weeks ago when she was here. When you're engaging in people, people are more excited to buy your books, and they're more likely to come back and buy your books and trust your opinion. If you're saying, I really think this is my best book yet, or I've got a new book out, I'd love if you'd support me, because they feel like they're connected to you. They feel like friends. So absolutely. Let's see, Anita's saying, when uploading my text into a template, should I start with my right-hand odd number pages? So I think that you were saying, Anita, that you are book formatting. So if you have book formatting questions, I always go to thebookdesigner.com, and Joel's amazing. He's got so much information and content. So that's where I get all mine from. But yes, in general, you're going to start on the right-hand page when you are starting your first page, right on the right-hand page, because you don't read left to right, you read on the right side first. So yep, start on the right-hand page. And if you need more guidance, if you have questions, go search thebookdesigner.com. Joel has so much content, so many articles, and I always go there. And I don't think I've ever walked away without actually getting an answer, because he's got so much content. What's the best way to start reaching non-local bookstores? Researching how local non-bookstore retailers make book buying decisions, gift stores, grocery stores, that kind of thing. So if you are looking at a store that's not necessarily a bookstore, but it's a gift store or it is a grocery store or something like that, how do you find out how they buy and who to go to? The first thing that I do is, number one, is it a chain? If it's a chain, they probably have a purchasing department. You need to go find their purchasing department and ask them how they buy their books and how they make their decisions. If it is a small retail gift shop, or if it's a small museum, or even small grocery stores sometimes, go to the manager. Go to the manager and say, I have a book I think could fit in well. Excuse me. I think it'd fit in well. Who do I talk to about that? Generally, even if the manager is not the buyer, they do have a very good sense of who you should talk to. So I always start with the manager. Can't get a manager? Talk to someone on the floor. I mean, just because they don't have a manager name tag doesn't mean that they aren't, that they don't have a lot of information. We know that people who work all over, sometimes, I mean, it's the case of like going to the employee to find out the information. So start with the manager, but you can really talk to anyone if it's a small store about who the buyer is. All right. And let's see. All right. You're welcome, Cheryl. Hope that helped. I see a question over here. Again, a reminder to put things over in the Q&A box. I'm answering questions over there. All right. We've got, here it is. Here's a question. I'm new to selling my book. How do indie bookstores purchase books off of different platforms like smartcart.com? Is that a viable way to sell your products? So the question, or the answer really is viable ways to sell your products through different websites, different, your website, other websites. Yeah, I mean, if they have book sales, you can try them out. It's hard to say what will work for your book. If you're trying different things like Shopify or different platforms like that, you've got to try it out. And you also need to look up and see how much work is involved for you. Are you willing to ship books? Are you willing to be there and baby the process along? Or do you want to put your book up somewhere like Ingram Spark, so it goes into Ingram Wholesale, and Ingram Wholesale gets your book into barnesandnoble.com and places like that. So you can just say, hey, just go to Barnes and Noble and order it there, and they take care of everything. Obviously, you earn less that way, but you also have to do less. So you have to decide what's more valuable, time or money, and sometimes just frustration. So it's a really personal decision. For a lot of authors, it's too much work to run a store as well as write and publish and market. So they take the lesser profit, but the more streamlined system. And keep in mind that if it's a more streamlined system, more people are probably using it. So that's my 2 cents on that one. All right. And Patrick is asking, we've heard Amy say that when you are marketing to libraries or bookstores, that you can go to a library system and ask them to carry your book and say that you plan to market and advertise any library or store that's carrying your book. So it's kind of a, will you give my book a try? I will market your library or your bookstore for you. And so any suggestions for what else to say to libraries and for low-cost ways to market in given geographic areas? So I will say that one of the best and easiest ways to do this, Patrick, is that if you are telling a library or a bookstore that if they carry your book, you will market them, is with a Facebook ad. And it's very simple. You market your book, you talk about, my book is now available, it's in X bookstore. You can go grab it locally now. And then you do a low cost Facebook ad where you are identifying your target market to be within a several mile radius of that bookstore. Let's say it's 15, because most anyone will go 15 miles for a bookstore. So then you are hitting a very target market within a 15-mile run. You are saying, go get it at this bookstore, and you link to your book at that bookstore, or you link to that bookstore so that they know exactly what you're talking about. You can even show the bookstore, hey, I'm running this ad, it's getting a lot of great responses. Or you can do it for a library as well. And you can do that I believe the minimum is $1 a day, might be $2 a day on Facebook, but you can run an ad for an entire month. So it's got to be less than $1 a day, but you can do an entire month for like $30. So that's what I would do. And then you can specifically market that bookstore or that library. You can support them while sending people in to buy your book. And if people are going in specifically to buy your book from that bookstore, guess what's going to happen? They're going to be like, hey, not only did this guy deliver, but this book is really popular. We should probably have more copies on hand so more people can buy it. And it's a snowball effect. And that's why Amy's been a big proponent of offering advertising and a partnership with libraries and bookstores for a really long time, because it's a system that works. All right. All right, another question. With a website, do I need to list all the places to buy my book with their individual links? This is a good question, Jane, and we get this a lot. When people have a website, they generally are talking about their book, and they're talking about their book, and they are linking to their book with a buy here button. What a lot of people do, a lot of self-published authors do, it'll say buy here, and it links directly to Amazon, or they only say buy at Amazon. So Amazon has a corner on the market. They are selling a lot of books, and they are selling a lot of ebooks. However, Amazon is also the biggest competition for major bookstores and indie bookstores. So if that's the only place you list and you ask a bookstore or a small gift shop or something like that to buy your book or to sell your book in their store, and they go to your website, they're going to say, oh, well, I mean, you're kind of just promoting Amazon and not any bookstores. So I'm not sure you're going to market and send people my way. So what I say is you should always have the big retail links. It's fine to have an Amazon link, but when you say you can buy anywhere online, that's what you should do. You should have a button that links to Amazon. You should, and it's okay to have a buy on Amazon link, but then you also need a buy on Barnes & Noble link, buy on Chapters Indigo, buy on, different indie bookstore sites. If it's carried in a local bookstore, give them a little button. Why not? The more places that your book is at, it just makes your book look even more popular. So I always list all the places that they can buy it in general. And there's there's the big ones: Amazon, Kobo, Apple, Barnes and Noble. Again, indiebookshop.com. Different places like that. Show your support not only for the big bookstores but for the indies as well, and it will take you a lot further in your reputation as someone who wants to support bookstores, and specifically indie bookstores, not just Amazon. And yes, I realize it's more work. I get that question a lot too, but isn't it more work? Yes, it's more work, but it's worth it. All right. Let's see, I've got to go back over to my email for a question from Winnie. Let's see. So Winnie had a question. She has had some bookstores agree or offer to take her book, but they're asking for a consignment agreement. And so Winnie's wondering how that consignment agreement works and also how she gets paid. So let's talk about that. A lot of times when a newer author or indie author goes to a bookstore and they ask them to carry their book, a bookstore will come back and say, we'll take a limited number of your books on consignment. It's not a bad thing. I promise it's not a bad thing. All they're saying is that they want you to bring in copies of your book or ship in copies of your book that they aren't paying for. They have a consignment agreement that is written that says that as you sell books, they will pay you for the books sold. This is a way for the bookstore to offer your book at no financial risk to themselves. But if they do sell the book, they make a profit, you make a profit, and your book's available from a bookstore. So they aren't taking the upfront risk of ordering a book and putting their money out. You as the author are doing that. It's not a bad thing. There's a lot of great consignment programs. And if your book consistently sells well, let's say that your book is selling and they keep asking for consignment copies. If your book is set up at a wholesaler like Ingram at an appropriate discount, you can say, I'm so sorry, I don't have consignment copies right now, but would you consider ordering from Ingram? So there's a way to transition if you're getting a lot of sales, but consignment just means that you're taking it and you're taking the risk, but get your book in bookstores. Almost always I say that if a store, a gift shop offers you a consignment deal, of course read their terms and make sure that it's fair and you're not paying to sell your book. But in most cases, it's an excellent opportunity to support local, to get your book into a real store and for you and the store to make a profit. And so I almost always say it's a great thing and consider it. So if you've got stores asking for your book on consignment, again, read those terms, make sure they're fair, make sure that you'll profit. And then if it's a great deal, take it, absolutely. And congratulations on people wanting to order your book and get it in their stores. That's awesome. All right. So if you already have followers on Facebook, does that make it the logical place to go for social media? Or should you still be researching to try to find out where your home is on social media? Here's the thing. If your platform's already growing on one type of social media, that's probably your home. Now, can you research and find out if there are other social media platforms that would be great to have? Absolutely, you can. You can absolutely do that. And if you're up for another one, take it. But if you are already seeing a lot of steam on one social media platform, roll with it. Take advantage of what's already happening and just build that up. I certainly wouldn't stop the movement and then try to go backwards or to move everyone over to a platform. If you've got 4,000 people following you and talking to you on Facebook, chances of you saying, hey guys, sorry, I'm not using Facebook anymore, but I really like Twitter, so let's go there, you might get 10%. But a lot of people, I think it's funny, if you like Twitter, you probably don't like Facebook. If you like Facebook, you probably don't like Twitter. It seems that very rarely do people really enjoy both. So go where your people are at, and if your people are already following and connecting with you on one social media platform, run with it, take advantage. If you want to add another one, great. But if not, start cultivating and keep working with what you already have. It sounds like you've got a great thing going. Yeah, so Cheryl's asking, is there an example of an author that has a presence on Pinterest? Are there opportunities there? So Pinterest is one of those social media platforms that kind of has a lot of differing opinions. People are either like, absolutely, Pinterest is the best ever, or Pinterest does nothing. It's a waste of time. It's very polar, and here's my opinion. Of course, we know everyone's got opinions, but mine's better than yours. Kidding, absolutely kidding. But so Pinterest, the thing with Pinterest is that if you're nonfiction, it can be great. If you are a cookbook author, fantastic. That's where people hang out for cookbooks. But if you are a fiction author, it may or may not work for you. If you're a fiction author, the most way that I see people using that platform is by creating boards, like what they think their characters would look like, or what scenes they think would be in there. So they're connecting with people on a level more of imagination. Whereas if you're a nonfiction author and you have facts to share, Pinterest graphics can be great and lead to your book. If you're blogging, you can create posts that lead to your blogs that then lead to your book. If you are, let's say you're a doctor that talks all about how salt is really unhealthy for you. Well, then you can create a lot of graphics and pieces from your book about health that could do really well on Pinterest and then lead them to your book. What's great about Pinterest is that it doesn't phase out as quickly as other social media does. So Facebook, when you put a post up, it might last a couple hours. If it's really viral, it might last a couple days, but then it kind of fades away. People very rarely are finding Facebook posts from 2 years ago and saying, oh my gosh, this is so relevant. Twitter is like 20 seconds. If you have a viral Twitter post, it might go live for, I don't know, like 4 hours, 5 hours, but for the most part, Twitter is quick, quick, quick. Instagram is the same way. It's like a scrolling thing. So as people scroll through, it can rise and fall really quickly. Pinterest, because it's on a search and SEO system, can stick around forever. I can look up a low carb recipe today and I'll find things from 2014. And the more that people pin it, the more popular it becomes, the more it stays up on top. So because it's a search system opposed to a scroll system, then it's a lot different. So Pinterest has a lot of staying power. Your old content can work for you for a really long time, as long as it's linked to a website that doesn't change or a URL that doesn't change. So keep that in mind. But for the most part, I've seen the most success with Pinterest on nonfiction. Let's see. I'm glad someone likes my lame joke, Cheryl. Thanks for the laugh. I can't help it. I just can't help it. All right. If I ask a bookstore to carry my print-on-demand book, is it necessary for me to first pay for the buyback feature to offer the store? Jean, it depends. By buyback feature, are you going through a vanity press or a hybrid press that has a program like that, or are you going directly through Ingram Spark? If you're going directly through Ingram Spark, there's no buyback feature. There is returnability, and yes, bookstores do like to have books that are returnable because it's kind of like insurance. Most of the time when a bookstore is ordering your book, they're not immediately ordering 50 copies. They're ordering 3 copies, 5 copies, and putting it on their shelves. And that way, if it doesn't sell, they can discount it, try to break even, make their money back. And if it still doesn't sell, they may send it back. But most of the time, they're not ordering cartons and cartons of your book and then shipping it back. I know the return feature makes some people kind of nervous, but very rarely, in my experience, do people regularly get returned books. Not en masse anyway. But yeah, your books may be returned, and if they do, it's going to come out of your compensation at Ingram Spark. But know that it's more likely to get your book in a bookstore because it's safer for a bookstore. It's a calculated risk and a smart risk, and that is why having your book set as returnable at Ingram Spark for Ingram Wholesale can be really important, especially for those retail sales. Now, libraries, they don't really care, because you know what libraries don't do? Return books most of the time. They're not in the business of buying books and sale for profit. And they're not in the business of, hey, let's let like 5 or 10 patrons read them and then we'll return them. It doesn't really work that way. So libraries don't really care if you have a return feature. And of course, they can accept a lower discount because the fact that they are not selling for profit, they're not resale for profit. They don't need a big discount to make a profit on. All right. Any comments about selling a children's book on Etsy? Well, Pat, I think that Etsy is, for anyone who doesn't know, it's an online shop and you can absolutely sell books on there. And I've seen some people sell their books on there. Just know that it is a shop where if people are ordering, you then have to pay a fee for that sale and then you're responsible for shipping it out. If that's your thing, if you've already got an Etsy shop and you're doing things that way, and especially if it has to do with your genre, it could be really effective. But if you are just trying to sell your books and you put them up on Etsy, it can be effective. I think mostly people are looking for homemade goods there. They're not as much looking for books, but they could find your book and they could buy it. But just know it's a commitment that you will then have to go ship those out, and you'll have to be timely so you don't get bad ratings. And Etsy does take a fee. So just things to consider. All right, how do you decide whether you stick with Kindle Unlimited or you move to wide distribution for your ebook to draft to digital? I've actually got this question like 5 times this week alone. So if your book's in Kindle Unlimited, and that means it's exclusive to Amazon, and you're trying to decide whether or not you take your book and you make it broad so it can go to Apple and Kobo and Overdrive and all the other places. This is what I say. If your book's been in Kindle Unlimited, look at your page reads. Have you been getting page reads? Have you been getting more page reads on Kindle Unlimited than outright sales? That is what I look at first. Now, if there's no movement on Kindle Unlimited, then you're not really losing much if you go off the exclusive. But if you're getting consistent page reads on Kindle Unlimited, then you may be kind of moving away from a good thing to try to reach for another good thing that may not happen. Meaning that, yes, while Kindle Unlimited is exclusive to Amazon, let's keep in mind that ebooks sold in 2019, Amazon sold 90% of them. And a lot of that, I believe, is through Kindle Unlimited. So it's important to know that if you're doing decently on Kindle Unlimited, it may not be worth the trade-off. Now, on the flip side, if you've got your book in Kindle Unlimited, or you've got it on KDP Select, and you're getting okay page reads, but not that much, then maybe you try Draft to Digital and you go broad. That doesn't mean you take your book off of Amazon. It just means it's not through KDP Select for Kindle Unlimited program. If you have your book on Kindle Unlimited, you're getting, some page reads, but nothing spectacular, and you have libraries asking to license the ebook through Overdrive, I mean, I think that would be a big push for me to go off Kindle Unlimited and go over to Draft to Digital and get my book on Overdrive. But you have to look at your sales, do some analysis, and then do some business planning. I mean, your book business is a business, so look at it strategically. Are you making the money on one platform, and what will you lose if you leave that platform? So if you leave Kindle Unlimited, what are you losing? If you're not getting page reads, you're not really losing anything. But if you're getting consistent page reads and you're getting read through there and you're making money, then you are losing that, because yes, people will still buy books on Amazon, just outright buy the ebook, but Kindle Unlimited is a huge platform that consistently draws in readers. So you've got to kind of look at your book, look at your sales, and make a decision based on the business of your book. So that was perfectly vague while also being really detailed. All right. All right. Yeah. So Jean's saying, as far as return, she's with a hybrid press. So Jean, it depends on the company that you're using. Bookstores may accept the book without a return feature, but it's kind of one of those tipper things that if a book's kind of on the fence, but they're not sure if they want to take your book, having it returnable can push them over the edge to putting your book in their stores, but there's plenty of stores that'll buy without it being returnable as well. So take that as you will, and maybe you try one and then the other. You can always, of course, go to bookstores and start marketing your book and asking them to carry the book. And if they say, well, we'd love to, but it's not returnable, then you know that's a good indicator that maybe you should go for that return program. All right, I'm gonna try to get through one or two more, but I do have an 11:15 appointment. Man, we went over a lot today. Thank you guys for being so fun. I love it. All right. Let's see. So Patrick is saying, what kind of social media training does New Shelves have available? Well, Patrick, that's a really good question. We don't so much have training right now. We do have social media optimization, where we help authors optimize their site by doing a full check through of what they're doing, what they could do, and giving suggestions. But maybe that should be something for one of our next free webinars where we do some training. So I'm going to pin that. Thank you for the idea. All right, and then the last question here is, Bowker. How much information do I fill out on Bowker? They have a field for distributor, and I'm using Ingram Spark. Should I put this in the field? David, you can. I think that when you have a form through Bowker, the more information you can put in, the more complete your records are. So I fill in as much as possible. And yes, your distributor for intents and purposes is Ingram Spark. So you can fill that in if you want. I don't believe that's a required field, but again, I try to fill in as much as possible. All right, you guys, we went through so much information. Thank you for hanging out with me. It's a long weekend, which I'm really excited about, taking off Monday for Labor Day. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I've got a challenge for you guys. For any of you who have been in books or marketing, and I'm doing this myself, it's a nice long weekend. You maybe have a little extra time. Go find someone in the book industry, whether it's someone you've learned from, a bookstore, a library, maybe it's a library employee because you've been there. Find someone that you have appreciated along your journey and go tell them. Better yet, if you've been to a library that's really helped you research your book and you've appreciated the research librarian that's helped you, go tell the director. I think it's so important that we're thankful for the people that are on this journey with us, for the bookstore employee that really takes the time to make a recommendation, for the person on Ingram Spark who went above and beyond to fix my mistake. I think it's important that we recognize that, and that's a really great way to build your community and the author community. So challenge for all of us, myself included, let's all go find one person in the writing community, author, publisher, librarian, bookstore, and let's say something nice to them and tell them how we appreciate them. And if they have a superior, a boss, let's tell them too, because I think we need more of that in the world. That's my 2 minutes of peace, love, harmony. So I love it. I hope you guys do it, and we'll see you next week, 10 a.m. Eastern for Free Advice Fridays. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next week. Bye.